Hey everyone, what is up?
Woo!
I am Kelly Sex on the Tongue Keen.
And I am Dawn. Maybe you're too much, Glenn.
Definitely the best line in the episode.
Yeah,
Loved
for
it.
sure.
The whole what fight was just hilarious.
Yes, it is.
Um, that's the kind of like Carol fighting that I want to see.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Yes. So we are now at episode 4, and which means we only have 2 episodes left after this.
Yeah, it's
And
gone fast.
yeah, this is our favorite.
Yes, depths, absolutely by far my favorite episode. And I
Yeah,
mean, we all know why, but
yeah, yeah,
it just
yeah,
is.
for sure. Yeah, but but it also had Didi and Theo, and
Yes.
I just, I mean, how do you not fall in love with Didi?
Oh, completely. Yes. And that whole, I mean, we just said it is literally half the episode,
Yeah,
and that half the episode is totally how I will imagine, how I imagined the spin-off was originally going to be. You know, it's
yeah,
them, it's Daryl and Carol traveling. They meet people. They have little interactions that are relevant to them, are relevant to the people. Then eventually they move on, and that's so. It's exactly what I imagined this spin-off would be. So I love it.
do you think this episode was kind of a preview of the rest of the series?
Yeah, I think so. I really think that this is going to be more. I mean, I think it's going to be a bit different in that they're going to stay in one country every whatever 2 seasons, if that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
But I think the feel of it and the amount of comedy that's in it in this one and in episode 3, I think it's really setting up the style of how it's going to go forward. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, back in 2020, 2021, when they were first, in the early
yeah,
stages of planning it, they said it was going to be a much lighter tone, and it was going to be like just a
mhm,
revolving cast with Carol and
yes,
Daryl as the main fixtures.
exactly. It's the
And
central, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I do think it was a good preview, as long as they're still sticking to that plan.
Yes, exactly. We don't know for sure, but I think if AMC are doing marketing research, which they must do,
Yeah,
and they see exactly the kinds of stuff that just goes down so well with fans, and it's not just particularly Daryl and Carol fans, but all general fans just seem to love that Carol and Daryl bickering, winding each other up in a kind of cutesy way, but working together as a team, like without even having to speak to each other, kind of thing. That stuff that goes on in the back half of this episode, I think is what most people enjoy watching, and I think AMC will lean into it if they're wise, which
yes. I mean, we saw a little bit of that in early season 10 too.
yes, we did. Yes, exactly. That the first half of season 10 was like the most perfect Daryl and Carol interactions, although they were arguing over Carol's like insistence of focusing on Alpha. But the actual interactions were exactly what I want to see from Carol and Daryl.
Yeah,
That mixture of emotional stuff and like stuff about how they connect with each other, but also the teasing and the silliness, and then the also the tension, which is sometimes it's good to have tension. I don't want tension all the time, but
yeah,
it's good to have that dynamic.
yeah, for sure. Any major highlights that you want to share about the New York Comic Con panel or anything?
Well, I think there's only one thing to talk about, and that is bless him, Norman Reedus crying, which I have
Wow.
never seen Norman Reedus like that ever,
We
ever.
we did we saw I can only think of one time I've seen Norman Reedus cry, and it was in the Walking Dead finale, because that was not Daryl, that was Norman
Yes,
Reedus
yeah, yes,
when he was hugging Carol. Like, he
yes,
wasn't like
exactly.
he wasn't
He said that.
crying, but his eyes were like glazed over. You could tell he
Yes,
was on the verge of
yes.
tears.
And I mean, that was what, for those who haven't seen it, played the first 14 minutes of this episode to the crowd in New York Comic Con, ending with the Daryl and Carol's reunion, and they were talking about it, and Norman Reedus was talking about the connection between Daryl and Carol, and it's earned, and all the same phrases he uses all the time. But he was talking about, when Carol tears up, I tear up, kind of thing. But then he was talking about Daryl's mindset in that moment when he's fighting through all the walkers and clears the path. There's nobody left, and there's Carol standing there. And Norman, as he said, was trying to say it's the one person Daryl needs most in the world. It's standing right there, and he couldn't speak for tearing up and crying.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and Melissa like rubs his back and is like, oh, because she was
Aw.
crying. She basically cried from that point on because it's
She's so
Melissa.
me. So me. That's what I love about her, because if I was in a show and playing a character with all these emotional moments, I would be
Yeah.
crying the whole time talking about
Oh
him.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not a crier at all, but I have to say, Norman showing that vulnerability there and how much he feels as Daryl in that moment. He said that in at San Diego. He said when they filmed the reunion, he had fireworks going off inside him because he was
Yeah.
feeling what Daryl felt, and just him describing that swell of emotion that this is the one person in all the world he would most want to see, and she's right there, and he's just so overcome with emotion talking about it,
Really?
and it's it's undone a lot of the sort of negative stuff that's going on with the people behind the scenes talking about the show, and it doesn't correlate with what we are seeing on screen, and a lot of the sort of negative stuff about carolers. And honestly, if Norman was that emotionally vulnerable and open in every interview, he's got everyone on side. He just he wins everybody back with that kind of realness, and really it makes it. There's a lot of times that people who don't ship Daryl and Carol are convinced Norman doesn't want that, Norman would never want that, whatever. But when you see him being that viscerally emotional about it, it really shows that he cares so much about the Daryl and Carol relationship and how important it is to him as a person. It's really lovely to see. So hopefully that bodes well for the future.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. There was
Um,
also, I was just going to say, there's also about the title. David Zabel said season 3 will not have a subtitle. And he said, because I've received so much flack for the length of the title, but I hope that doesn't mean it returns to just Dial Dixon. I hope they change it to something more equitable for both.
yes. Yes, please.
Yeah.
I noticed in the credits for the first time, this is the first time I just happened to notice it accidentally,
Yeah.
that she is in front of him for executive producers, but I think
Yeah.
they're in alphabetical order.
All right. Yes. Yeah. David Alpert. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, because I think
Yeah.
Angela Kang is before her, um,
Yeah. Yeah. You
and
might
then
be right.
David Zabel is last.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think at first I was like, "Oh, okay, so maybe he got, first billing, like, as for
Yes.
cast because
Right.
she
That's
got
what you
first
meant.
billing for EP," but yeah, I
Yeah.
think they're just in alphabetical order.
Yeah. Melissa also said about being EP that she didn't have a lot of input in this season. She said, I
Oh.
sort of sat back and I let the men do their thing, the big boys in the room, which was very interesting. That she said it was interesting being in those meetings and hearing about the stuff that happened before I was there, and how she might have done things differently, kind of thing. So I was like, ooh,
Yeah,
she's
very
basically
cool.
saying, don't blame me.
Nice. Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Um, all right. So was there any other major tidbits that you, found particularly interesting?
I don't. I think that's uh, the there was an adorable little boy called Matteo who was a Make-A-Wish the kid that they brought up on stage to sit on the
Aw.
panel. And Norman asked him about his opinion and then probably wished he hadn't, because he said, because he said, like, what did you think? And Matteo was like, well, you know, about the show, about the when she kisses him, and Norman goes like, don't get me in trouble. And he goes, I just have to ask, what is this reality?
How old was this kid?
I don't know, 10, I think, something
Oh
like
my
that.
god, that's so funny.
And then when he asked him about the reunion, he was like, it shouldn't have happened earlier. So Matteo is us. He's the voice of the viewers.
Good job, Matteo. I
Bless
love
him.
it.
Yeah.
Before we get started, I wanted to let everybody know, in case you are just, if you just watch us for the Book of Carol, Walking Dead universe coverage, or if you just listen to the Daryl Dixon podcast, we actually have quite a few other podcasts as well. We have we're covering a couple of shows actually that just debuted. Death Crunch is our Hysteria podcast, and we cover that here. It's a binge, it's a Peacock binge, but it's on USA Weekly, so we're sticking to a weekly format as far as covering it. Bruce Campbell is in it. It's about the satanic panic of the 80s, and it is fantastic. The first episode was so great. I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. Couldn't get enough. And it's hard for me to get into a show that's not like horror or like just really messed up in some way, or a thriller. And this is like kind of this has its like, it's also kind of a puzzle box show. There's stuff going on that you don't really understand, but it's mostly lighthearted and funny, and
Cool.
and I loved it. We are also covering Teacup with Teacup TV Podcast. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as our weekly coverage here. And of course, we are also currently covering From Series Podcast. And we also, in addition to our weekly podcast, we have Sunday night after shows immediately following the new episodes. And for the after show in episode 10, we will be giving away a cameo from David Alpay, who plays Jade on the show. He's very funny. Go check out his intro, his cameo intro. It's hilarious. And like everybody who has gotten cameos from him says that like it was almost like he knew them. So apparently he gives really good cameos.
That's good.
And of course, we have the Antler Queens, our Yellow Jackets podcast, and we are actually going to be putting out some bonus content once all of those podcasts and this one wraps up. We're going to be putting out some Antler Queens bonus coverage for Yellow Jackets, and we are going to be starting our Severance podcast, The Severed Floor. So look forward to that. They actually just moved up the premiere date for season 2. So we've got to kind of bust and move on our season 1 coverage for that.
Yeah.
And then we're also going to be covering Welcome to Derry in early 2025 with Dairy Queen's podcast. And that is going to be it for now. Okay. No more.
Or you'll be divorced.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'm getting divorced. Also, oh yeah, and I apologize. I didn't completely go over everything with the David Alpay cameo giveaway. The only thing you absolutely have to do to win is be present at the episode 10 after show and participate in the chat. But not every time, but for every episode that you leave a comment on, plus every after show that you join and participate in the chat or call in, you get another entry. So right now we've got 2 people who are kind of duking it out because they've been at all of our after shows. So make sure you try to catch up. You can still, like, if you haven't seen any of them, you can still catch up because you can go and comment on all of our all of our videos and get an extra entry for that. So that is it for the housekeeping. Of course, if if you like our content, please like, subscribe, put on your notifications so you can get notified for our other coverage as well. And if you really enjoy our content, it would mean so much to us if you could stop and give us a good review on iTunes for the Daryl Dixon podcast. That would be fantastic. Also, if you are listening to this and you want to check out our YouTube coverage with video, if you want to see me and Dawn's awesome hair, you can find us at youtube.com/@cyborgqueenmedia. And sorry, that was a lot.
Okay.
But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it.
Right. And now I'm trying to think what the very last shot of episode 3 was. It was Caryl, wasn't it?
Yes.
About to get walkered. I'm trying to think of a term for it. Super walkered.
Yeah.
She was with Janae's people outside the nest, and was Janae revealed she was planning to kill Caryl along with these other people and turn them into super walkers. So when we come back, we are with Daryl in his cell alone while he hears lots of noise outside, and in the distance, he pans through. A really nice shot actually, pans out the window above him, and we can see just lights in the distance. And this is Janae's people. She opens the back of a truck and brings out a massive machine gun type thing. I don't know what you call them. Gatling gun? Is that what you call it? On a
What?
tripod.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just realized that one thing that I don't think I hit on that I was
Okay.
kind of and if you hit on it and I don't remember, then please let me
good.
know. But I was complaining about how I felt like Caryl, the first scene with Caryl and Janae, how I felt Caryl was just like, not really being very smart.
Yeah.
And it seemed like Janae wasn't being very smart either because, I mean, she did the same thing with Cadrone and look what happened.
Yeah.
But, it's nice that they actually explained at the end that no, she knew what she was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was
And
like,
she was playing Caryl the way Caryl was playing her. Yes,
yeah,
because she was pretending. Yeah, okay, I'll take you to your friend, but what she was going to do was kill her at the end of it.
yeah.
Excuse me, I've got the hiccup burp today. Sorry. And but also I was thinking that when Caryl, because we didn't really go into this, but I thought about it afterwards. When Caryl says to Janae, I'm here to kill him. And we were like, why is Caryl being so stupid? Because she knows that what Remy has told her, which presumably is Daryl is her partner or something like that. But it makes sense now, and that's why Janae, even though Caryl doesn't explain anymore, Janae just says, "Oh, he must have done something terrible to you." And men hurt us so badly, don't they? In a should a heartbreak, like a woman scorned kind of thing. And it's only afterwards I thought, oh, that's why Janae says that, because she thinks Caryl has said to Remy, "Oh, he's my husband or ex-husband or something," and she's saying, "I'm here to kill him." And Janae understands that thought because she's like, "Yeah, you're, yeah,
Yeah.
men are scum, basically."
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically Janae either really believes that Caryl does want to kill him because he broke her
Yes.
heart or whatever.
Yes.
Or she's just playing Caryl because
Yes.
Carol's telling her that she wants to kill him, and here Remy has already told her that that's not that they're close. And so at the end of episode 3, Janae says, "You're gonna get your wish. You're gonna kill your friend."
Yeah.
Which I mean, because Caryl didn't tell her that he
No.
was her friend or anything. So
No, exactly. So yeah, it does make sense.
yeah.
But it is one of those things, yeah.
And
There's a
Janae is
lot of things
brilliant,
like that.
so I
Yes,
really hate the idea of them screwing that up
yeah,
for
yeah. So the Janae's soldiers shoot the crowd. Caryl, being Caryl, manages to hide in the crowd behind a big guy. Hide behind a big man, that's what I'll do. And is not shot. They all fall to the ground. And then Janae's, the doctor, and others will go around shooting them with the serum. And Carol's maroon leather jacket saves her.
Yes. Yes.
I love that.
Like, I am okay. Even still with her leather jacket, you still really had to suspend disbelief in this scene.
Oh yeah, this whole scene. I wrote a review. For those who don't know, I write a review of Daryl Dixon for winteriscoming.net, and I said. Carol wears Carol's leather jacket saves her, but she's also wearing a lot of plot armor.
Yes, a lot of plot armor. She is covered in it in a scene.
Yes.
I mean, she's basically in a pile of super walkers.
Yes. No, but they turn towards her because she pulls out the darts immediately. So we're supposed to believe it didn't actually penetrate her skin. And then she gets up, and the walkers turn towards her, but no one grabs her, and she just manages to go and run away.
Yeah.
And nothing stops her. And she's not hit. She's not shot.
No, not at all.
No. She had a force field of plot armor around her for this whole scene. But as I say, considering the amount of plot armor Daryl has had over the years, we shall forgive it.
Yeah, I mean, it really was over the top though, because coming up in the in the transition here, like she seems to have had a little ESP too.
Oh yes, exactly. She's psychic. She's invincible. She's basically a superhero.
Yes.
And that's why they had to make her manipulative, so she wasn't too Mary Sue.
Right. Exactly.
Oh dear, yes. So she escapes from this, and they have brought out a buggy with Cadron tied to the back of it, which I really liked this. I thought it was clever, and the way they often do the get a herd to follow you, using music as they did at the end of season 10 and things like that. Let's just have a human bait. Poor Cadron is it. So he's on the back of the buggy, and Carol flings the driver out, which I really love that. Which is like, and she takes over driving, and it's the wind in her hair, and she's driving towards the door, and the walkers are chasing them. Cadron's point of view, of course, horrific, and he's screaming, and she stops the buggy, and he's like, "What are you stopping for? Keep going!" But she stops the Janae's men, for reasons best known to themselves, take a cannon and shoot open the door for her. It's nice of them, isn't it? They open the door.
And that's what she was waiting for. She somehow knew that was going to happen.
I knew that was going to happen. I'll just wait here.
And, I have to ask. I have to ask, because I love when this. I don't know if this has come up before in either of the season, or actually in all three of the seasons, of the Walking Dead universe that we've covered. I think this might be the first time that I've noticed a verbiage difference. Is buggy like the typical?
Oh, okay, yeah.
In Scotland,
I don't know. What word would you use?
We would call that a dolly.
A dolly. Okay, yeah, that is a UK American difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
We would call that a beach buggy, or a
car.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the thing, because it looked like he was strapped to a.
Yeah, he was strapped to or like a gurney or something.
Yeah. The car. Yeah, the car. That's like. Yeah, that's like either a Jeep or a buggy. It's kind of like in between that. So yeah. I guess there isn't really a difference there. I just thought you were talking about something else.
No. I think I'm trying to think. There is something terrain vehicle, they call them, is the proper long. Like they use them on farms and things like that. The sort of with the open top, and you race them. Anyway,
Ireland, they call those trailers. Or tractors, I mean, tractors.
Tractors, yes. Yes, we have yes.
The Irish love their tractors.
Yes, we do in Scotland as well, actually. It's a big thing. There is a famous story about an MP, a member of parliament and tractor porn. Just Google it, but if only if it's safe.
Yes.
Only if it's safe to do so.
Yeah.
Carol's driving up the winding streets of the Nest, and the walkers are chasing. Ginny's men are chasing. Um, she stops and she gets Codron off, and he says, "You go," and he's gonna fight back. And she says, "Well, what about you?" And he says, "No, on you go. Tell Dixon I did it for the boy." And they go their separate ways. He tells Carol to go up the mountain while he goes back down to who knows what. So Carol is now in the Nest, and we know Daryl's in the Nest. It's like but we go from there into the room where Lasang is holding Isabelle. He has her tied up in a chair, and he's saying to her, "You need to tell us where Laurent is." And of course, Isabelle's not giving it up, and he starts waxing lyrical about, he first met Laurent when he was 6, and the Union of Hope evaluated Laurent and found, yes, he was special the way that Isabelle had told them they were. So it's all Isabelle's fault.
Yeah.
Which is, this is really bugs me, because in episode 2, we never got her addressing that at all. And it should have, before this scene, her realizing, look, I've done this. I told these people he is special, and now he's at risk because of them. And Lasang is saying to her, you had this faith, and blah blah blah, and Isabelle is saying, now, no, it's wrong. You're using your faith because you're weak and you're trying to control people. And Lasang says, oh, that sounds like Daryl. And she says, no, this is me, but this is what he awakened in me that I'd been sleeping for. And I was like, but that makes no sense, because even it wasn't until the moment that you heard from Emile that they were going to bite Laurent. That was the only moment you were aware of it, because you were still fully on board this is Laurent's fate, and earlier in the episode. So it makes no sense. You're lying. It wasn't woken up in you by Dad. It was woken up in you when Emile went, by the way, they're going to kill Laurent. So that it feels like there's whole chunks of dialogue missing, really.
No, it absolutely does, because I think it actually makes sense for her character to feel that way, to be like, to have more common sense, and to be, not even, and that's not even taking into account her life before the outbreak, where,
yes, exactly, yeah,
like, even not taking that into account, I think we kind of got a hint that she was maybe not as invested in all of that
yeah,
as she wanted to be, you know what I mean? But
yes,
she was
yeah,
still trying to hang on to it.
yeah. When she said, when Daryl invited her to come to America, and she was like, no, it's impossible, because
Yeah.
this is his fate and this is his destiny and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But obviously, it just wasn't enough. We haven't had enough
Right.
of that. Yeah.
I agree.
She Lasong reiterates and says, Laurent is something special, and Isabelle says, no, he's just, the way he looks at the world is special, but he'll still bleed and die. And I thought, oh, and then she invokes Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad. They all were bled and died. They all were human in form, and it doesn't work on Lasang. He's completely unimpressed.
Yeah.
And she says, that's what we need to survive, is the way that Laurent looks at people. But Lasang says, no, we need proof. Proof is what we need. So tell me where Laurent is. But just then, a guard enters and says, there's been a breach. And and then Isabelle does a Beth.
Oh man.
And she lashes at Lasang, cuts his face with the shower drain thing, bit of metal.
At least that
And
was smart. At least that was like,
yes, yeah,
that was a clever little tool that she made.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But Like, go for the jugular, go for
Yeah.
your throat.
This is a woman that knew how to easily get watches and money out of guys'
Yeah,
pockets, you know, like, she could do better than that.
and when she was with Quinn, remember in season 1, and he had her in her house, and she was trying to come up with weapons and she was going to kill Quinn, and then changed her mind. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, she can do that. She could do better than that. But
yeah.
all it does is enrage Lasang, who takes a knife and stabs her in the stomach. And I really loved Joel Fuentes, De La Fuentes acting in that moment, because you see he's like horrified and like, "Oh, what have I done? What have I become?" But he's too caught up in it all. And they all flee. Jacinta drags him, and they all flee from the room, leaving Isabelle bleeding on the floor.
You
Um,
know, I have to say, like, bravo to Clemence Jose, because she her acting is very, it's very I kinda compare her to, in a way, to Yvonne Strahovski.
yes,
Um,
yes.
her acting is very subtle, you know,
Very
she's
understated, yeah.
yeah, but she knows, like, she's really good at evoking that emotion, like, they created a character that we were supposed to care about
Mhm.
and then botched her
Yes.
and made it so we really didn't care about her, but yet I genuinely was heartbroken when he stabbed her. I was like,
Yeah.
I had a visceral reaction to it.
I liked the fact that it was not a planned thing. It was two
Yeah.
people in a moment, and I
Mhm.
thought that was very realistic, that all of them, including her, have been caught up in this religious fervor
Yeah.
about Laurent, and she's come out of it and Lasang hasn't. And
Yeah.
that's different. I did like that they played with that dynamic. Um, I just wish we would have seen her with Laurent more.
I know, that's really heartbreaking
Yeah,
that she never
the,
like, she didn't get to yeah.
there was no dialogue between them this season at all. I think. Oh no, there was
Yeah,
in the baseball scene, but that was you know
that was it.
yeah.
It's but yeah, I'm glad that there was a reason that she was in the last episode staring at that roach that was coming out of the drain, because I was like, "What is she why is the camera focusing on that? What is going on there?"
Yes,
That was very, very crafty,
yes,
so good for her on
resourceful.
I would have never thought about doing something like that.
No, I wouldn't have either. Um, so we see the streets of the nest. Carol is doing her caroling. She's lurking around, and the two guards walking with her, and she's out. Oh, excuse, and then throws the knife.
Yes,
It's just so funny.
I know.
She she kills one with a knife, and she shoots the other one. And we go back, and we discovered Isabelle isn't dead. She's still alive, and she starts to crawl her way out um, of the room and try to get outside. This this is, speaking of plot armor. It's not so much plot armor, but Carol high kicking the guard was just. I laughed out loud. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Slips
Yeah.
between two buildings so we don't see anything but the leg. Like this.
She was like, you know, because I'm watching, because if my current obsession is From,
Yeah.
I'm constantly referencing, reference like using GIFs and stuff to reference, Harold Perrineau as Mercutio,
Oh yes.
and,
Yep.
like, you know, his little drag number, like, she was throwing up, like, Mercutio level kicks, okay?
That was something that the Polly Bear share would have been proud of.
Yeah.
It was funny. God bless that stunt person.
Oh, man. That was
Just to
hilarious.
like, yeah, I'm like, okay, I can appreciate that Melissa McBride might not be able to kick a man in the head. Fair enough.
Yeah. And I don't think Harold Perrineau would probably be able to do that today either.
No, no, probably not. So we see Isabelle struggling to make her way outside. There's chaos around her, people fighting, gunshots screaming, and she gets actually to the outside lanes of the nest, and she's struggling to walk, and this fast walker starts coming at her, coming straight for her, and then boom, he's dead. And of course, it is Caryl has shot the walker that was heading for Isabelle, and I I love the way they had this interaction. That Caryl is so soft with Isabelle. She has no idea who she is. She immediately sees she's been stabbed, and Carol's like, "Oh, let me look after you," and gets her to sit down, and she has a look at the wound, and she's, "Oh, it's clean. You'll be okay." And gets her to press something on it, and she, "Oh, you're shivering," and puts a blanket or something around her. And I just loved that was their interaction. I had seen people
Did
speculating
you?
because people hate Caryl, and they were like, "Oh, I bet she kills Isabelle accidentally," and then how awful. And it's like, what? Why? No.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah.
I
It doesn't.
one little thing that I absolutely loved how Carol was with her in the scene.
Mm.
I one thing that I picked up on that I really liked, I loved it sounds so weird to point out, but I loved Isabel's, like, little whimpers. Like, sh
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
she actually sounded realistic, and she wasn't just,
Yes.
like, putting on a because so many times in TV shows when somebody gets hurt like that, it's they're not really they're trying to cope with it, they're trying to
Yeah.
be a little too strong, and she is. She's, like, trying to hold it together, but she's still, like, whimpering in pain.
Yeah. When Carol presses on it, she's like, as you would do. You can't help it.
Yeah.
Judy. And she says, Carol says her own name first. She says, because she says, "Who are you?" And Carol says, I'm Carol. Um, and it doesn't at that moment click for Isabel who she is. And then she says, "What are you doing here?" And she says, "I'm looking for my friend. He's an American." And I loved Clemence's is acting in that moment as Isabel sort of looks at her like, "What? Oh my God, you're that Carol."
Yeah.
It's a lovely little minute. And inside the nest, we see a young chap, a nest person, running for his life from walkers, and he's running through the building towards where the cell where Daryl's kept. And he lets himself in to protect himself from the walkers outside. And I just love that. I mean, it's in all the trailers, but I love the way Norman Reedus did that way. Just like, hello,
Yeah.
if you release me, I'll help you. But
Yeah, I liked
they're
that
really
too.
nice. So he lets Daryl out, and we see that this it is basically a long corridor, but it's like a long corridor room, so it's quite big. Is full of walkers, and Daryl has his morning star. His stuff is sitting on a table just outside the cell, and he starts swinging his morning star, taking out walkers. And after about two or three, you can hear because I've watched the scene a few times now. You hear the gunshots coming from the every time he kills a walker. Oh, there's another gunshot. And you can
Yep.
actually see Carol because I was like, I'm going to look and see, and you can't see her getting towards him. But of course, he's oblivious. He's just focused on the walker in front of his face. And eventually, he kills the last one, and there's Carol standing, I don't know, 20 feet from him, 10 feet from him. And the Norman Reedus absolutely applauds for that he's acting in this moment where he looks at her in total confusion, like, what? What's happening? And then dawning realization and this relief on his face as he runs to her and embraces her. And
I'm
it
fine. I'm
is.
fine.
And then uh, she he pulls back. It's basically the same as the Terminus reunion in the dynamic of it, in the him running and the crying. But instead, in Terminus, Carol pulls back and holds his face. But in this one, it's the opposite. Daryl holds her face, and I love that because he's like saying, "Is it you? Are you really here? Is this real?" And then he crumbles again, sobbing into her and embracing, and the camera pulls away and we just leave them embracing. And I loved the closed caption says Carol whimpers sobs. And I'm like, yes, yes,
Wait, what did it
sobbing.
say?
It said Carol whimpers and
Oh,
and sobs because she's like,
yeah. You know,
Um,
I have to say something.
yeah,
I did not feel this way the first time that I watched it,
no.
but and I need to remind everybody that I am a Carol and Daryl shipper, but I am so not the romantic type. I will pick apart, like, Carol and Daryl could be making out, and I'll be like, "Do they really wanna be making out? I don't know. I can't tell." I'll
Yeah,
pick apart everything. Um,
yeah,
that did not I don't know how you feel, but that did not look like a platonic hug to me.
no. When he goes back into it again, the vibe I got is like it's like he just wants it's total abandonment of any manliness, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but like he's just overflowing with relief that she is here. The sheer happiness that she's there and he's holding her, um and as Norman Reedus said in the panel yesterday, the one person in the world he needs. He Whenever anything's going bad for him and he feels really low, and this is aside from Isabelle, he doesn't know what's happened to Isabelle, but just in his situation, and the one person he knows will make him feel better, will get him through this, will be by his side, will help him, is there. And he's yeah. I would look. I'll be honest. I would have liked some face touching more. Like some like I know what I mean.
I actually kinda preferred the just, like, burying their faces
Yes,
in each
right.
other.
Yes,
That was there was a lot of that. And
there
I
was. Yeah.
especially liked the way Carol did it. It was really sweet.
Yes. Yeah. And I just like that they're both completely. I don't like that they cut away from it. And then we don't get any of the conversation. And I realize they're not going to have a lot of conversation in the situation they're in. But I would have liked to have just a bit of after that moment to go, how are you here? What's happening? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen that. I think our friend Mithla has pointed out that as the camera angle changes, Daryl's arms are under Carol's coat, and so
Oh, okay.
in one of the takes, he's gone right, stuck like a
Gotcha.
total snuggy thing. But
Aw.
yeah. I did like that the camera pulls out and leaves us. It's like we'll leave them to their privacy for a moment, which I thought was kind of a cute directorial sort of thing.
Yeah.
To look to do it that way rather than being zoomed right in on them. But then we see them immediately rushing outside. Carol's obviously said, I've met this person, Isabelle, and she's been stabbed. And Daryl runs up to Isabelle and no, 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 Isabelle's now lying down, and he tries to get her to move. We'll get help for you, but she recognizes it's too late. She's too far gone. So Daryl gets down on his knees, and Isabelle says, just let Laurent know that I did everything to protect him and that I'm always with him, and please make sure. It was cute the way she said, make sure he's almost safe, always safe. And he's like, okay, and she's like, okay, and he says, okay, which is a bit like the hot conversation we'll have
Yeah.
later with Dara and Carol. Um, and uh, I did. I'm still not liking the whole. I know she's on her deathbed, but I'm not a fan of the way Daryl says we can do that together.
Yeah.
Because he's still planning a future with her, even though she died.
Yeah.
I know he's just saying it, but still. And she says, in her dying words, she says, "I can see them, the fireflies. They're beautiful." And that's she passes away in that moment. And it was really nice sort of tableau the way it's set up, that Isabel's lying down and Daryl's kneeling over her. He doesn't like put his head on her, he just sort of puts his head down. And Carol comes and stands with her hands on his shoulder. And only in the last time I watched it did I notice she takes her knife out. She's going to put down Isabel so he doesn't have to, which
Oh, wow.
is very
Yeah.
nice.
I
Yeah.
did not notice that.
No, I didn't
Um,
notice it for
Uh,
several watches.
this is the thing that I was like sitting on my hands about last
Yeah,
week that I wanted to talk about when I was talking about like just complete ridiculousness.
yeah,
He seemed more upset when she got taken away
yes,
than when she actually died.
yeah, yes, yes.
Like what is this? What is going on?
It's it's very like it's more like he's resigned to the, oh well, of course she's dying,
Yeah.
rather than, oh no, this person I was going to have a future with. You know what I mean? So it fits in with what Norman Reedus has been saying, that it wasn't a love match, it was, he was experimenting kind of thing. Um, he definitely has seemed more. I mean, if we think about when Beth died and he's carrying her body and he's in bits, that's not this. This is
Yeah.
just. But I wanted to comment on the fact that they had those two scenes straight after each other, the reunion and Isabel's death. I do not like that,
Yeah.
because these are the two emotional beats of the episode, a high and a low, and have them all take place in under 3 minutes, straight after each other, with not even a buffer scene in between of Lasang or Janae or
Right.
somebody. It takes away the impact of both scenes, because
It does.
you can't get lost in the happiness from the reunion, because you're immediately, oh no, Isabel's dead. And you don't feel Isabel's dead to the full extent, because you've just been sharing a happy moment.
And
And I don't.
unfortunately, I think that the scene that was hurt the most by that was Isabel's death.
I agree.
Um, and it's just, I hate to say, like, I'm glad we don't have to talk about her anymore, because
Yeah.
I have a lot of rage over that. Like, just
Yes.
about how her character was treated, and the fact that they don't even talk about her in like
No.
promotion, on the panels
Yes.
or anything. It's like I just justice for Clemence, okay?
Yes. I hate that she was built up to be an interesting, complex person in the first season.
Yeah.
When she is awful to Daryl and manipulates him and lies to him, although that's bad, that's an interesting character trait. She is becoming so determined to have this destiny path for Laurent. She stops considering Daryl's feelings and she's cruel to him.
Yeah.
That was interesting. To have that completely be ignored, that it never happened, and then on top of that, to not have her discussing how her faith shifts, discussing how she feels about realizing that her belief in Laurent's specialness has put him in this position, to not have her talking about throwing away her vows to kiss Daryl. Um, Nothing. She doesn't get to talk about anything other than
Yeah.
Ohio and Fireflies.
Yeah, because they it honestly feels like they couldn't get rid of her fast enough, and I hate that.
No. Yeah. Yeah. And I said, I said this to Kelly before, I think probably off camera, but we talked about it before we saw this season, that I had this thought that maybe Isabel was like an angel, not a literal angel, but a figure sent to protect and keep Daryl safe until Carol got to him.
Yeah.
And the fact that it literally is, Carol's there, Isabel's dead in seconds, is like, and that's a bit too on the nose. Thank you.
Yes.
She exists only to fill the gap, and as soon as Carol's back, whoosh, she's gone.
Yeah.
It's just there, the misogyny of that you can only have one woman, big, important leading woman on screen at once, is not good. And
Yeah.
that both nuns were killed off after kissing guys. There's some hideous misogynistic religious undertones there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, it's like the virgin final girl, and
Yes, exactly. Yes.
you know?
The horror thing is like, yep, as soon as
God.
as soon as you have sex in a horror film, you're going to die, and that,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, we could talk about that for hours. And speaking of which, the next scene doesn't get much better.
No,
Because
no,
there's
the next scene, ugh.
yeah. I have just written in my notes, I hate this scene. Um, so to explain, we see Daryl and Carol fleeing the nest, which is burning and obviously completely destroyed, and they're fleeing, and Carol is chasing Daryl. She's walking
Yes.
ahead of him, and she's trying to keep up with him, and she's trying desperately to engage with him, and he's completely ignoring her. She tries so much. She says, I've got a plane, I've got somebody waiting to fly us back home. Nothing. So you can see the desperation that she says, Judith and Connie will be so happy to see you. She's trying to link him to the two people he thinks he'll react most to, he cares most about. Still nothing. And
Yeah.
he's angry. He's irritated. He's brusque. And he just says, let's go. It is like and she even says to him, are you hearing this? And all he says is this way. That's it. And she even tries to ask him about Isabelle. She says, "Oh, I know you must have cared about her. Who is she? No.
Yeah.
Who's the kid? No.
The woman flew, like, across an ocean,
Yes,
and yeah, and this is what we get. Like,
I
he just
don't
grunts at
know.
her.
I don't know why. What? Why is this? I know he's desperate to get to Laurent, and I
Right.
know his mind is not on the. But why is he acting like Carol telling him he has to come in from playing out with his friends?
Yeah.
you know,
That's
it.
exactly what it seems like.
Yeah, it's like she's ruining his fun, and he's like, "Oh, come on."
Yeah.
When she's sorry, there's something massive going on in my building.
Oh,
There seems to
no.
be some kind of violence happening.
Everything okay?
Sure, somebody's shouting and
Do you
banging
need
the
to
door.
pause?
Yeah, pause for a second. Let me
Okay, we're
just
gonna pause
just
for okay. Um, sorry, guys, we had to,
yeah, we had a situation. Had to go
yeah.
and deal with something.
But we're back.
So apologies. Yes. We were talking about why Daryl is being so rude to Carol because
Yes.
there's no I don't understand the motivation to write him like that. I don't understand why he would be like that.
Yeah. Yeah, especially, like, and I was telling Dawn when she got back, before we jumped in again, that I was, kinda scrolling my phone while she was away, and I opened up I opened up Twitter, and the first thing I saw was, the clip that John was talking about where, Norman Reedus got all choked up and everything,
Yeah.
and he described, like, he couldn't even get the words out, and he was saying, like, he was talking about the reunion, and he was saying, the one person that he needs was standing right there, and, like, and, yeah, okay, so why are you just grunting at her right now?
Yes. It's the one person you need. You're so happy to see her. Why are you angry?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I think I can share more feelings on this later in the episode,
yes. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
it was really annoying.
Yeah, it was. Yes. It was like a cold shower, a kind of cold thing like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." Um so inside the nest, Lasang is fighting. But it doesn't matter because Janae walks in and says, "We've won. You have to lay your weapons down. It's over. The nest is ours." Meanwhile, back Daryl and Carol reach the cave where they were meant to be meeting Laurent, and it's empty. Daryl grabs some of the ash from the fire and says, "No, it's cold. They've gone," and he's furious. And but he looks, and there's the little hidden nook in the wall where there's a stone covering it. He removes it and finds Laurent's Rubik's Cube. So Laurent has left him there to let him know that they were there. So Dar's like, "Oh, okay." And I did love the way they had this, that Carol grabs him and is like, "Okay, look, I'm here. I'm
Yes.
here. We will do this together." And he's like, "Yeah, okay." And he sort of calms down. She manages to get that moment of connection with him. So it's obviously some time has passed because it's now that this all happened at night and it's now daylight, and they're walking through some fields together. And Daryl says, they must have come this way. We can't be too far behind them. But they're not rushing. They're just walking. And
Yeah.
Carol now starts to get the conversation, and she says, "So Isabel," and Daryl says, "Yeah, we helped each other out. I wouldn't have made it this far without her." And I was like, "Yes, because she's Tinkerbell,
Yes.
because she saved you." And uh, he says, "So that you've got a pilot." So he had taken in what she'd said. He was just not dealing with it in the moment. And he says, "What did you do? Did you just load up a plane and fly?" And he says, "It's a mistake. I don't know if you noticed this." He says, "You just loaded up a plane and flew to Maine."
Yeah,
I mean,
I did notice that.
yeah, you
I
mean
was like,
flew
what?
from Maine?
Yeah.
Okay, nobody, obviously nobody on the editing caught that,
Yeah,
obviously.
I guess so.
And he says, what made you go? And it was just a hunch. And Carol's just like, yeah. You left everybody for a hunch. She's like, yeah. And at that point, Carol says, she stops and she sees in the distance there's a chateau, just beautiful trees and a beautiful vista. And she says, "Well, one thing's for sure, we're not in Ohio anymore." And at this point, I was still going, "Why is it Ohio? Why is everybody talking about Ohio?" Because I hadn't clicked the Commonwealth in Ohio.
Yeah.
And Daryl says, "Yeah, de paysan." And Carol's like, "What?" And he says, it's a French word that means a change of a change can make you look at things differently. And Carol looks up and smiles. We get Carol's smile, broad
Yes.
smile. And he's like, "What?" She's like, "It's just crazy. You're speaking French. I'm here. You're here. This is just crazy." Um, and Daryl's like, "No, it's stupid," which that was a very Daryl thing to say. Um, and she tells him about Cadron, that Cadron helped her, and he said that to do it for the boy. And Daryl's like, "Oh, okay," because he doesn't know what Cadron's been through, so he's just like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Um, and then back in the nest, now it's revolving. Who's tied to a chair? Because this time it's Lazang.
Yes. Good. Get in a few
Yeah.
punches.
Yes, it's about time. He's had enough.
Yeah.
And he is Janae. He's now in the receiving end of the same questions of where is Laurent. Janae wants to know where Laurent is, and he's like, "Oh, okay." Um, she she has a really good line where she says, "Oh, I can see now how you lured in the sheep." And oh, that's very good. Yes, she can
Yes.
see what Lasang is. Um, and Lasang saying, "No, we shouldn't fight with each other. We should be fighting the dead, and we both need Laurent." Um, and I like the exchange as well about Isabelle. He says, "Oh, Isabelle won't tell you anything," and she's like, "Nope, not anymore. She won't."
Oh
So
God. It
yeah.
was so like there was something so scummy about Lo Sang saying that.
Yes,
Like,
it was just I know.
God.
I thought that moment, that moment he stabs Isabel is the moment where he's just gone full baddie. He's just like
Yeah.
past
Yeah.
any pretense of
Pretty
caring
much.
anymore. And
And I called it first, people.
you did from the first moment he was on screen. You said
And
it. You knew.
before that,
Yes, yes,
when he
yes.
was just a name.
Oh dear. We'll make sure that's in your credits.
Yes.
Oh dear. And Janae says, "Oh, here am I being relying on the truth, and now I realize the best way was to get people is to do what you feel with confidence and And Lasang says he fears for the future and he fears for all the people. And he said when Laurent escaped, he began to doubt his faith and he thought God was on Laurent's side. But now he realizes that it was so that this would happen. And Jacinta, who's also being held, looks on at him like, "Oh, he's losing his faith in she's not impressed by that.
Yeah.
Don't impress her much. Uh,
Mhm.
so Janae says, so if I find the boy, it will prove God is on my side then. And she tells the guards to go and search the countryside for him. And that's when she says the line from the trailer, which they made it look like she was saying it to Daryl, but no, she's actually saying to Lassard that stop worrying about the future because you're not going to have one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We go back to Carol and Daryl walking through the woods, and I thought, this short scene, which doesn't have a huge amount, I don't know how long it is, but it's very short, tells us more about Carol than in her past than we've had in like 10 years on The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what we want. We want them to be sharing these kind of little anecdotes about their lives that
Yeah.
just that show why they're friends, show how deeply connected they are, that they're talking to each other about this stuff.
Yeah.
So Carol says her one French phrase, "Où est le gars?" which funnily enough, we were talking about last week that she should have known. "Où est l'American?"
Yeah.
And she speaks about her French teacher and that she used to get rapped on the knuckles, and she said I wasn't very good at maths either, which gives us all this little insider that Carol was not good at school, and she went through her life feeling not good at everything until now she's discovered she's really good at surviving. And she says, I've I've never really been any place. She talks about her dad had a globe, and she would look at it and think about the world. And she's, I've never really been any place. And Daryl sounds like a husband when he says, "We've been places." Like she's accusing him of not taking her on a cruise. I just
That's
think
so
that was
funny.
so funny. And she says she always wanted to travel, and Daryl asks why not. And a beautiful line, she says, "I became a mom, and that was my world." Which is just,
Yeah.
um. So they reach a sort of muddy area, and he he spots that there's more than two people at this point in the tracks. That somebody caught up with Laurent, and uh, he so he's worried. And he also says, remembers to ask her about the conversation on the radio where she said, came back. And he says,
Yeah.
"Oh, who was that?" And she says, "Oh, it wasn't a person, it was a thing, it was just a bad feeling." And I shouted, "Boo!"
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's
know.
it's just such sneaky writing. It's like what
Yeah.
they did with the Glenn fake death. That you don't need to trick your audience like that. It's cruel, and not for me because I'm watching it anyway, but for the Rick fans who were desperately hoping for a Rick mention, no. And
It's The Walking Dead has done this so many times. It's ridiculous. And
yeah,
like my PTSD is kind of my Walking Dead PTSD is kind of getting the best of me because there is and I apologize for bringing it from again, but there is a major answer revealed in this
yeah,
season that the audience hasn't seen yet, that I've seen
yeah,
ahead. Major thing revealed. And the reason, like the explanation of it is actually very meaningful,
hmm
but it's so it's not anything that would have been expected, and the audience is gonna go crazy with it, like, just
yeah,
tearing it apart. I know it already. Like, it's really that's it?
yeah,
And it's like and maybe I'm wrong, but it's like, The Walking Dead has done this so many times, and
yeah.
okay, another great example, possibly the worst one ever that was just so ridiculous. Was it season 5, after Carol got taken,
Oh
and
yeah,
Daryl came back to the church,
yeah,
and, I think he ran into somebody outside, and they asked if he was
yeah,
alone, and
yeah,
he said, "Why don't you come on out?" Like, talking to somebody, like,
yeah,
off camera, and everyone was like, what's going on? Who was he talking to?" Like, what's so
yeah.
surprising about this?" And it was, like, nothing. It was Noah
It
who
was Noah.
yeah.
who we hadn't met yet, and nobody cared about at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
They love to lead you down the garden path. And I understand suspense and all that. But when it keeps being a disappointing reveal, then you just stop caring. So
yeah.
it's not a good thing long term because you just go, oh yeah, very clever, aren't you wonderful? You got
Mhm.
me there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so they are walking through the this area and following the tracks, and it's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a walkway with walkers on either side, sort of impaled on
Yeah.
wheels, and I couldn't. It's because it was so dark. I couldn't really see what it was. Is
Really
it like
creepy.
farm equipment, to sort of? And the
It At first, to me, honestly, my first thought when I saw it was it almost looked like medieval torture
yes,
devices.
yes, it does. Yes,
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
yeah.
It's kinda
Yeah,
weird.
it's very strange. But they walk through and they're in a village. They find this farmhouse. They break in, guns drawn, and you can hear music playing very gently in the background. And the song is "La Paradise pour toi," which is the title of this episode,
Yes.
um, which is heaven for you, basically. And they break in and guns drawn, and there's this lovely old couple sitting at the table, and they immediately put their hands up and say, Mr. Dixon and Sister Isabelle.
Oh my
Yes.
god. Um, you know, once okay, so, Dawn looked up Dawn's actually got the lyrics for the song, and
Yeah.
I think it's, when you were going through it, and I actually looked it up while you were taking care of what you're taking care of, and, my, uh my thoughts on it were I think the lyrics to this song are important because it
Mhm.
kind of is like it's almost like a theme of kind of like what the Carol and Daryl spinoff is supposed to be about.
Yeah, totally. So the lyrics, the artist is Gillian Hills, and the lyrics are saying, "One day, far from the noise of the cities, I saw under a blue sky the sea surrounded an island where happy people lived. I found paradise for you, a country where happiness is king, in a corner of Tahiti." Obviously, we're not in Tahiti. um, Life ain't hard. We're more or less fishermen. We don't have a home. We sleep here or elsewhere. I found paradise for you, a country where happiness is king. It's always Sunday there. Flowers, we see them everywhere. The fruits make the branches bend. Just raise your arm. I found paradise for you, a country where happiness is king. I found paradise, believe me. So, yeah, I think this is talking about. Norman Reedus has given a couple of interviews, I think, with European outlets recently, where he talks about that Daryl. First of all, he sort of said this was Daryl, but then he said Daryl and Carol are looking at their lives and thinking, we're only reacting to things where it's always fighting, fighting, fighting. Maybe there's a different way to live. Maybe there's a quality of life that we're missing. And I think we're meant to see it in Didi and Theo, this old couple, that is the life they're leading. They're leading until, until Carol and Daryl show up, obviously. Um, they're leading a really nice life. They have, fruits and vegetables. They have a little farm. They have chickens. They have their friends who have died are around as walkers, and they just
Yes.
have happiness in the moment. And I think that's why that's the song, and it's the title of the episode is it's about looking at the world like that. That yes, the chances are we could get killed, excuse me, any moment.
Yeah.
But isn't that all the more reason to enjoy the minute you're in and to just
Yeah.
find paradise in that moment? Um, and I think that's really lovely, a lovely, all the talk of happy ending. That's a lovely vision of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everything about this couple was really important.
Yes,
Um,
hugely important.
yeah. Yeah. And oh my god, how lovable. Like
Oh. So
I mean, yeah,
twinkly
Theo
eyes.
goes a little, Theo goes a little unhinged at the end there.
Yeah.
But I mean, but they're just both so lovable,
Yeah.
like in general. I loved both of these actors. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
I couldn't
They
get
were.
enough of
Yeah.
them. Like I would have loved if they had just joined Carol and Daryl and just followed them.
I have to reveal a bit of information, and this is public information, so it's not. I'm not revealing anything secret. But when the casting call went out for this couple, they asked for a couple. So I don't know if they really are a couple or not. But they wanted a couple who were 65 to 80 age sort of thing, had skills in the kitchen, which was an interesting request. But the
Wait,
other
what did they say?
skills in the kitchen,
Oh,
because
skills in the
also
kitchen.
you
Okay,
see, yeah.
that's funny.
But the other thing that it said was the woman would have to be open to having her hair cut short.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
So, yeah, I thought it applied to the couple at the end of in season one, but the timing was wrong. It was season two. The couple that Daryl saw on a balcony in season one. Um,
Yeah.
but this, and if we go back to thinking about that scene, it's very similar. He looks up and he sees a couple enjoying breakfast together and just enjoying each other's company. And Daryl's blown away. Norman mentioned it recently in an interview. Daryl's blown away that people can still live like this, and that's what Didi and Theo are doing. So very obviously, with the short hair, they were trying to draw a parallel from Daryl and Carol to Didi and Theo.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, and
Yeah,
and we'll go through all of it. Like there were so many parallels to their lives, and it was just
yeah.
crazy.
So
Um,
that's the point. I hand over to you, I believe.
yeah. So we see them. It's nighttime, and Carol and Daryl are eating dinner with the couple, and the guy said that he was out foraging for mushrooms. And Theo is his name. I kept writing the guy in my notes because I didn't know his name yet. I forgot
Yeah,
to go back and
the
change it.
guy said
Yeah.
yes.
um, so Theo said he was out foraging for mushrooms, and and Carol says, "Merci, c'est bon," which means thank you, it's good. And I'm like, but you couldn't say where's the American.
No,
um, the guy praised Falou and Laurent, said really nice things about them, um, and he told them that he gave them a car, and Daryl asks if he can get them a car, and he says that he has many, and he can look in the morning, and they can see if they can get one to work, and Daryl seems like ready to go right then and there.
yeah.
And but Carol's like, yeah, let's just leave in the morning. And Didi says, Sister Isabelle knows best, smiling at Carol. So they
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
they start
I just have to say, there is no plot necessity for them to continue this.
yeah.
Why wouldn't they just go, "Oh no, this is my friend,
Yeah.
Carol."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. um and in the morning, Daryl and Theo are taking a look at the car, and the guy, I thought this was interesting. I thought this part was really interesting. He mentions that he's fourth generation French,
Yes.
and he said that we sold carrots to the Germans in the First World War, Nazis in the second, and American soldiers after that. And armies come and go, and but they're still there. And
Can we wave your red flag?
yes, yes. Sorry, I actually put a note in here to put my red flag up there, and I totally forgot.
Yeah, red flag time.
Yeah, yeah. um, yeah. So it's very interesting line there.
Yes.
Um, he mentions that he's got some ethanol in the garage, and Daryl finds a car that doesn't look like it's in too bad a shape, but it needs a battery and some hoses. And
Oh,
yeah,
can I just interject there? He says, one of the trucks Daryl looks at, Theo says, "Oh, I learnt to drive in that truck and learnt a lot more." Like, if you know
um,
what I mean. And I was like, he seems obsessed with sex.
Yeah.
His old mom. Which I just thought, again, there's no need for that to be there, but they thought, no, let's just make him a bit of a way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Somehow I didn't even catch that. I don't know how. But yeah, he said he knows where to get some of the parts that they need, and he says he can take Daryl with him. Carol and Didi are chopping up vegetables in the kitchen. I loved this scene so much.
Yeah.
Didi says that that Laurent is very fond of Daryl and of his aunt Isabelle, and Carol said that, mentions that Daryl's a really good influence. And Didi said that, the way he talked about you two, and Carol says, "Why do I get the feeling you're trying to tell me something?" And she tells Carol that Laurent told her that he thinks that Daryl loves Isabelle, but he won't say it because if he does, he won't be able to leave. Which is interesting because he did not say it.
No, he did not.
But he told Carol that he loved her.
Yeah.
And then he left.
So, doesn't quite work.
But Carol says it's more complicated than that.
I really, really hope that there's some post-interview, by the time this comes out, there's some post-episode interviews with Melissa. I would love to know what she thinks Carol was thinking at that moment. She does sort of stop for a second, and obviously she's like surprised that, okay, Daryl's in love with this woman, okay. But there felt like there was so much more going on as well when she says it's more complicated than that. Like, what is she thinking there? Is she being Caryl or is she being Isabelle? It's very interesting.
Yeah. And she almost like the look on her face, I mean, she almost looks uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, this woman is clearly thinking that Carol and Daryl are in love, and she's Isabelle. And meanwhile, Carol looks very uncomfortable with the information that Daryl could possibly be in love with Isabelle.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And so yeah, Carol asked Didi how long she and Theo have been married, and she said she said they aren't married, and that her husband died years ago, and she said her children and grandchildren, everybody is gone. And Carol said, "You seem so happy." And Didi said she wasn't happy for a long time, and that, like Daryl, she was torn between the world she lost and the one she found. But one must look for a way to keep living, which is just like basically exactly what what Norman Reedus has been saying in a lot of these interviews.
Yeah. I don't like the fact that Didi is saying that she was torn between her old and her new, but then she embraced the new and moved on. So it's like saying, so Daryl was right to kiss Isabelle. No, he wasn't.
Yeah.
It's a very mixed message we're getting about that whole aspect of it.
Yeah, for sure. And Carol said, it's not so easy sometimes, and Didi said that reasons are everywhere. And just then,
I've just realized. Sorry, that just came to me. That's what the Mother Superior said to Daryl when she was dying.
Oh, is that what she said?
Yeah. Or words to that effect. Signs are everywhere, but something the same kind of thing. Reasons are everywhere. Oh, I must go back and check exactly what her words are. Interesting.
Wow, that is really interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So just then, Daryl and Theo come through the door, and they're listening to Paradise for You again. Carol and Didi were listening to it, and Theo and Didi start dancing, and Carol and Daryl just kind of watch them smiling. They're very cute.
And that is such a cute scene. And he says, a couple of different people you know, who also have seen this episode, as we said, the whole season leak, um, have said, "Oh, are we meant to just think because she says, oh, I'm not married to Theo, are we meant to think he's just platonic?" But I was like, no, he says when he comes in, he says, "My love, our song." So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a love thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, and I thought the mention of my husband died years ago, and like, Carol's husband died. Her second husband isn't dead, but she left him.
Yeah,
It's just it's interesting.
yeah,
Um, so the next scene I love so much. Next to the reunion, this was
yeah.
probably my favorite scene.
So funny.
It's we see Carol and Daryl and Theo. And earlier when Theo, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. When Theo told Daryl that he knew where to get some stuff and he could take him, he mentioned, "Let me just get my walking shoes." And and so we see Carol and Theo, and Daryl is pushing Theo in a wheelbarrow. He says, "Glad he put on his walking boots."
This is the comedy we want. This is the
Yes.
kind of wine we love.
Loved it. It was so great. And he's and Theo is waving at the walkers and saying hi to them as they go past him. He's like, "Hey, that's my dentist. Hey, how you doing?" And and he explains to them, Daryl, well, Theo first tells him that, the whole street, everyone's dead basically.
Mhm.
And Daryl asks why they didn't just bury them, and he said it's, they're mostly old people, and it's too hard for old people to bury old people. So they honored them by locking their gates and paying their respects as they walk by. Which was kind of interesting. It reminded me, it was very reminiscent of Princess,
Yes,
you
yes,
know.
definitely.
Um Finally they arrive at their destination, and Theo tells them to stay there and he'll go in first. Um Carol tells Daryl that Didi said that Laurent idolizes him, and Carol said that, he thinks he'll do really well in Commonwealth. And it's interesting that she didn't say anything about Isabelle,
Mhm. Yeah, she just
Um
looks at, yeah, go.
but Carol thinks Carol says she thinks Laurent will do really well in Commonwealth, and Daryl says, well, he's got friends in Paris. Maybe he could just stay here. And and Judith, like, Carol was like, "What about the kids back home, like Judith and everyone?" And he's like, "That's different." And he basically says he doesn't want to lose him.
Mm.
And Carol asks him if he's afraid of ending up like her. And he just gets this look on his face, like this stunned look on his face. He's like, "No, no, I ain't afraid of that."
Mhm.
And then Theo comes in and grabs them. But what were your thoughts on this?
It's a very difficult scene to read because it like Daryl's saying he doesn't want the responsibility of Laurent, and then Carol cuts through it and is like, "Well, you're responsible for kids." And he's like, "No," and no, I don't want to lose him. Um, and he, I don't know what that. Obviously, Carol, we know Carol hates herself and thinks she's broken and unlovable, and obviously she's like, "Oh, okay, you don't want to be like me, you don't want to have lost kids and think you're," but I don't know what Daryl's meant to think in response to that. He's like, "Son, like, no, of course not," but he steps towards her as if he's about to have a conversation and say something else, come towards her and be more, not confrontational, but more direct. And they're interrupted, and I don't know, I can't get a handle on where it was going, that
On the
conversation.
When I was watching this again last night, um, I I was kind of heartbroken because
Mm.
I remembered that Daryl basically feels responsible for both Sophia and Henry.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, that's great call. Great call.
Yeah, and to hear her say that, just it's like, I think it probably just kind of shocked him. He just
Yeah,
like he didn't know how to respond.
yeah.
Like, because I don't think he thinks that Carol blames him,
No.
but he blames himself.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's like, I think her saying that really hurt him.
Mm.
Not not like Carol was hurting him, but like
No.
really got at his guilt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And maybe it sort of made him more aware that Carol blames herself. That he's like, "Oh, hang on," you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because she's like, "I'm a terrible person. I've lost two kids," and he's like, "Wait, are you blaming yourself? Wait, why? It's my fault." They're having a game of
yeah,
who can blame themselves more.
right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that kind of caught him by surprise, and
yeah.
he just and I don't think he's ever told her that he feels responsible.
No, no, I think you're right. Yeah, we need
Um,
to have a conversation, man.
yeah, but we know that he does because of Norman Reedus has talked about that in interviews
Yeah,
about how he
yes,
feels responsible for that, and he even said that when Henry died, it was like his worst nightmare that
yeah.
you know that he let her down again. Um, but so yeah, Theo comes out and brings them in, and they're checking out this gorgeous
Oh, yeah.
vintage car in the garage. Oh my god, I was just drooling over this thing. It was so beautiful. Um, I didn't catch what kind of car it was.
No, I don't know. My knowledge of cars is not such that I could recognize it from that kind of thing. No.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just a beautiful vintage car, luxury car, and they there's a new guy. I missed his name. I know we
Yeah,
got his
I
name.
didn't catch his name either, I'm afraid. I think he only
Yeah.
says it, in passing.
Yeah. Well, he asks if they're Americans, and they said yes, and he said he likes the US and his brother lives in Florida, and Theo, like, kind of pats his back patronizingly and says that the guy and his wife go every year and stay at the Fountain Blue. And, so, the guy's really, not very with it. And, Carol says Florida is really nice, and the guy asks if they stay at the Fountain Blue, and Daryl says it's on their bucket list.
Love that. Give Daryl more funny lines. It's so
Yes,
good.
I thought that was hilarious.
So funny.
And, the guy says to tell them he sent them and to ask for room 22, it's the best.
I
And,
hope that comes up again in future.
I know. He then shuffles off and says he's gotta have the car working by Monday so he can get to work.
Mm.
And, Theo says he forgets everything, even the hungry ones. Um, Carol and Daryl, are then, back home working or back at their at the couple's place working on the car when Didi brings them some tea, and Daryl's asking for some ethanol, and Didi mentions it's in the barn, and Carol offers to go help her, which I thought was interesting
Yeah.
because she already had. I mean, do you think that she was trying to do you think she was trying to kind of face her fears again and try to
I think maybe she wasn't thinking it through. I think she was just in the minute going, yeah, because Carol has been in barns before and not
yeah,
reacted. So she maybe thought, in this circumstance, that's going to be fine.
yeah,
Wearing one of Theo's coats, which I loved. I don't know why. It's the only scene she's wearing it in, but I loved it.
yes,
Yeah. And I think she just doesn't want Dee to be lugging ethanol about.
yeah, yeah. Well, she offers to go help her, and they approach the barn, and Carol starts having another flashback and panics. It's not as strong of a flashback this time.
Mhm.
Like, she's not seeing Sophia right there with her. Um, and we hear mostly voices
Yeah.
and just like one quick scene of like Sophia's feet shuffling along, and then that's it. Um, and so it's not as severe, but Didi kind of snaps her out of it and asks her to talk to her. And Caryl said she had a little girl, and Didi said that she got through it and she will too. And they share a hug. And meanwhile, like Daryl is kind of watching them, and I'm just like I'm wondering what's going through his mind as he's watching Caryl crying to this
Yeah.
woman, you know?
I'm so glad somebody's there to comfort Carol. It's just
Yeah.
so nice, like a mother figure. It's just lovely to see.
Yeah. It's it, and I'll share more of my thoughts on that in a second, but we then see Caryl. Oh yeah, this is one of the other best scenes of the
Yes,
episode. Caryl is revving the engine, trying to get it going, and Daryl says, just give it a little gas, not too much. And she she gives it some gas, and he tells her that she's giving it too much, and he said just a little, and she says that was a little, and he says it's too much, and she's like, maybe you're too much. And then he says, "What?" And she's like, "What?"
what?
Like, "What? What?" They say "what" back and forth, and it's so funny. I loved it.
They're such children.
I know. And Theo approaches them and tells them, "Don't stop. It's a good show. You're like an old married couple."
Yes.
So
And I want
funny.
to say that he's saying that in response to their dynamic, to what
Yeah.
he's seeing. It's not because he knows about Isabelle and what Laurent says. We don't know if Didi's told him. It's purely in response to their dynamic that he's witnessing, which is like an old married couple.
Which he's part of. He's one half of an old married
Yes,
couple.
exactly. He recognizes
Yes. But
game sees game.
this all started, this little bickering started because Daryl was just being snippy with Carol.
Yes.
And I'm kind of wondering because we just saw him watching as she was like crying and hugging
Yeah.
Didi. I'm wondering if he's upset because like he's always had a problem with her getting her to talk to him.
Yeah. Yeah. That could be. And I like the fact that Carol says maybe you're too much. It's her like getting out this stuff that she's like, oh, okay, he's in love with a woman that he's met for 2 months, and he's
Yeah.
not mentioned that. All he said to me was, oh, she helped me get, she helped me. That was it. So I think they're both saying the same thing. They're both annoyed about the same thing. Like, why aren't you talking to me about this?
Yeah.
He's annoyed at her, and she's annoyed at him.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. Um so what happens? Yeah, so just then a Jeep approaches and Theo tells them to hide. So they get in the car. And Carol thinks that they're gonna kill him, but they're apparently just picking up like some veggies or something. Putting up my red flag here.
Yes.
And so later that night, Carol and they gave Carol and Daryl a couple of bedrooms, and they're hanging out in the room where Daryl's sleeping, and Carol is going through some of the couple's photos, and she says, I guess Janae won the battle,
Yeah.
and she said, I know you had people there, and Daryl said Isabelle and Laurent, and Carol then hands him something that Judith made for him. I couldn't figure out what it was
Well, I
exactly.
think it's that. Some
Yeah,
little figurine, and it looks like it's wearing a helmet, and it's got wings. So it's
yeah,
fancy.
yeah. Um, he asks how she is, which was nice because when she brought her up before, he said nothing.
Yes. Yes, exactly. He's remembered he cares about Judith.
Yes. And he asks how she is, and Carol says that, she didn't want Carol to go, but part of her knew she had to. And Carol said that she's just surprised that he got so close to people there. And he said it's hard to explain. And she said, well, if you ever want to try. And then she goes to leave and she's about to close the door and Daryl stops her and tells her he's glad she came. And then she says, "I am too," and then walks out.
Yeah, too little, too late, buddy.
Yeah. Right. And it was yeah, my heart kind of broke a little in the scene because it was
Yeah,
like Carol was like, acknowledging that she's not entirely sure that Daryl wanted to come home,
yeah, exactly.
you know? It's really, really sad.
Yes.
Um, but, in the morning, Carol and Daryl are packing up, and Theo tells them that they should have some of Didi's truffle eggs before they go. He said, "They're like sex on the tongue," and then he says, "Sorry, sister." And putting up the red flag again. But do you know how hard it is? Like, truffles are so expensive because they're so hard to find.
Yeah, you need a pig to find them, don't you?
Yeah,
Pig
yeah,
to
you need
find
yeah,
truffles, yeah.
they're yeah, pigs are used to find them, and it's and they're just offering them truffle eggs, like
Yeah,
it's no big deal.
yes.
It's yeah, red flag. And, but of course, Didi was making the truffle eggs and, Didi was pure, so
Yes.
but they're eating this was so funny, they're eating the truffle eggs, and Carol lets out a "Jesus," and then the couple looks at her, and she's like "Sorry, these are the best eggs I've ever had." And, Carol and Daryl, they thank them for everything, and Didi asks them what their plans are after they find Laurent, if they'll stay in Paris.
That was a great moment of tension where they just look at each other like, yeah, we don't know what's
Yeah.
happening.
Pretty much. And, yeah, Daryl said they're still working it out. They then hear a car approach, and Carol and Daryl run to the window to check out the situation, and when they turn around, Theo is pointing a shotgun at them.
No, bad Theo.
Like, "We liked you, Theo. What the hell?"
You ruined it.
Oh, man. And, Didi, of course, is shocked, like, she's clearly not in on this, and Daryl immediately asks him what they offered him, and Didi asks him why, and he said, For you, my love, for us." And,
Uh, I found paradise for you. He wants paradise. He doesn't want Daryl Carol to ruin it.
yeah,
Sorry, too late.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, Carol asks if he knows who they are, that the people that are coming, and he said, "Armies come and go. You don't survive by picking the losing side." And, Didi gets up and tells Carol and Daryl to come with her, and then she just takes the gun really easily from Theo's hands and calls him a fool. Like,
I
she
love that
clearly
dynamic.
I know, she clearly runs things around there.
Yeah.
And, so they run to another window to check out the situation, and I think they're in the basement, and,
Yeah.
Janae walks in, and, Daryl mentions that it's like Janae and 4 or 5 of her guys. Um, and, Didi gives Daryl the shotgun and tells them where to hide. Janae walks in and says, "You know why I'm here." And Didi tells her that they left. And Theo says they tried to assure them, but they were suspicious. Meanwhile, Carol and Daryl are kind of hiding and surveying the situation. And she says they're gonna search the barn. And then Daryl says, "Cover me," and heads outside to get to the car. And then Shanae sees the egg sitting on the table, and, just really smart move.
Yes, very clever. Yep.
Yeah. Asks her, "May I?" And she takes a mouthful of some eggs and comments on how good they are. And here I'm just thinking, she's just trying to be an asshole. Um, and, Daryl is attempting to sneak over to the car and motions Carol over. Then Janae tells the couple that the people she's looking for are very dangerous and they're at war. and she asks if they know who she is, which is funny because, Daryl had just asked that same thing. And Didi says that her father warned her about people like Janae who came to their village looking for children to put on trains, basically comparing her to the Nazis.
Yeah.
And Janae looks offended by this.
Yeah. What a cheek. How dare you?
Carol and Daryl are still sneaking around outside. Daryl tries to grab his weapons from the car. That's what it looks like he's trying to do.
Yeah.
Then he sees one of the Garriers, and he ducks behind a wall and alerts Carol and grabs a pipe. Inside, Didi says, I is telling Janae, I told you they left hours ago. And Janae says, then why are these eggs still warm?
Oh.
Yep. Those damn eggs. They just ruined
Yeah.
everything.
They did.
She says they're there somewhere, and one of her guys says he'll find them, and then Janae says, Janae is so goddamn smart. Like, this woman is just brilliant.
Yes.
And Janae then says, no, let them do it. And at first I didn't know who she was referring to. And she said, if there's one thing the dead are good for, it's sniffing out the living. So she was talking about the couple.
Yes.
And
Turn them
the
into
guy,
walkers, and then they would find them for them.
yeah. And then so the guy gets ready to shoot them. And then Carol busts in and just starts blasting. I need to get that clip. I need to get one of those clips of Danny DeVito in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So anyway, I just start blasting.
Yeah, that's just Carol.
Yeah.
High kicking, blasting.
Yeah. And she starts blasting. She hits one of the guys, and Janae and the rest flee. And, she's just taking dudes out one at a time. And Didi and Theo are still crouching behind the kitchen island. She's looking around and then gets cornered by Janae and two of her guys. And, all their guns are drawn on her. And so she's pretty much helpless in that moment. And Janae looks at her and says that she sees judgment in Carol's eyes. And Carol says more like confusion as to how someone like her could turn into this. And Janae says, you know what else I've seen? And she starts talking about the outbreak, and she said, the art was protected and the wealthy and powerful got to safety. And, while all the little people died, and that she saw her husband devoured 5 feet away from her through the glass. And she asks Carol if she's ever known that kind of loss. And Carol just laughs indignantly.
Yeah.
She's like,
the closed caption says, laughs humorously. Like, yes. Humorously, should say.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
As if, yes.
Yeah. No, my life has all been roses.
It's been great until this point.
Yeah. And Daryl busts in and kills Janae's guys, and Carol grabs one of the guy's serum shooters and shoots Janae right in the back with an arrow. And she can't pull it out. She's trying to pull it out and she can't get to it. And she basically just quickly starts changing into a super walker.
If only she'd been wearing a leather jacket.
Yes. But it is gross. I mean,
It
her
is,
face is like kind of exploding.
It reminded me of the Fly,
Yes.
Jeff Goldblum's The Fly. That kind of sort of pustully looking face.
Yeah. Yeah. Her face is coming off.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But she just dies. She doesn't actually turn. So I thought that was interesting. That like, so if you shoot a person that's alive, then they just die.
Yeah. They have to be dead first. Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't quite understand that. And then they go into the kitchen and see that Janae's guys killed Didi, which was heartbreaking.
It was.
Yeah, she was one of the most likable one episode characters for
Oh,
sure.
definitely, yeah. But it's the law. We've got to kill them all.
Yeah, exactly. And
you can't leave anybody alive.
Yeah. And Theo is just huddled over her crying. And Carol and Daryl are burying Didi as because Theo's not gonna lock her up.
No.
Carol and Daryl are burying Didi as Theo's kneeling by her grave. And then they take off, and that night they're packing up stuff. And then Daryl finally decides to open up to Carol a little bit and says that when he first met Isabelle, he didn't think much of her, and they basically just needed something from each other. She needed his help, and he needed a way home, so they made a deal. And he said Laurent became the glue that held them together. Sound familiar?
Yes. And when he says, and Carol says, "Yes, I do." Perhaps
Yes.
that wasn't the tone, but that's what I read.
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah.
that sounds familiar. Yes.
Yeah. I'm watching this. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. They're comparing this to the kingdom and Ezekiel and Henry.
Ezekiel.
Yeah.
And I think that's very deliberate. I don't think that's like over reading into it or certain. I think that's a very real comparison they're making.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. And I thought this was very interesting because he said, he looked at her and just very seriously said, I never ever stopped trying to get home to you. But the longer that I stayed, the harder it got. And that immediately took me back to Carol visiting him in the woods.
Yeah.
And, telling him that she wasn't going to be able to visit him as much. And, that Ezekiel and Henry needed her more. And,
yeah.
And, yeah. So I thought, were you kind of thinking about that too?
No, I wasn't. I liked that he specifically said to you, because all the other times he's talking about my people and whatever, when he's talking to Isabelle or when he's talking to Carol, he can be open enough to say, I was coming home to you. That was what was in my mind the whole time, which I really liked. But then, he's admitting that, and that's what Carol said to him, I was surprised that you got so close to people, and he's saying, it got harder because he had, when he thought this is where he was going to be, so he thought, well, okay, I'm developing relationships with these people, then maybe this is where I should say. I don't like that we have Daryl really thinking that, but that's obviously what they're trying to say, is that Daryl was conflicted and started to think that maybe he should stay there.
Yeah.
And so that
I felt like they were really trying to draw a parallel between Henry and Ezekiel and Carol and
definitely
Laurent, Daryl and Isabelle.
Yeah. Yes. That draw of a child that you start to see as your own, and they come as a package deal kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it so he says it's just the longer I stayed, the harder it got, and Carol says, you loved her, and he doesn't really say anything.
No. I watched this very intently because this week someone said to me that Daryl nodded. He doesn't. I watched it several times because he doesn't. He gives nothing away. He just like, bye. Doesn't indicate anything, yes or no.
And we also never heard. We heard Ezekiel tell Carol that he loved her, but we never heard her say it back.
No, and I think that's a very deliberate choice.
Yeah.
Daryl and Carol are the only two people they have said. The only two people, what I mean? The only person each other has said, "I love you too." And I think that's a very deliberate writing choice they've made.
Yeah.
And there was no reason why Daryl wouldn't have said it to Isabelle. You could, given if you took this scene on its own, you could say, oh well, maybe he didn't want to hurt Carol's feelings, or he didn't want to admit it. But he was alone with Isabelle, and he still didn't say it then. So if he was going to, he would, or even on her deathbed, he might have said it, to make her feel better, even. But he never said.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But then he says, Laurent's coming home with us, right? And then Carol smiles and says, yeah, I know. So Daryl's changed his mind.
Yeah.
And so back at the nest, Sabine and that was that scientist guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. They
Whose name we don't know.
yeah. They tell Lasang that Janae is dead, and Lasang says she went after the boy and now she's dead. So that's basically proof that God is on their side.
Yes.
And Sabine says Marion's way was not enough, but neither is yours. And Jacinda says, so now what? And then we see the four of them walking into a gathering crowd at the nest, and Lasang approaches everyone, and he says, "All is forgiven, my friends." And he he then says, "Pouvoir de vivant," and I was very proud of myself that I actually
Oh, yes.
understood a lot of this French.
Yes.
I didn't need to translate it. But he basically welcomes them to the Union, and he says, "Let us merge our dreams for a better, stronger future. And ahead is the promised land, and Laurent will take us there." And then he says in French, "Let's find the child." Ah,
Because they never learn.
yep, exactly. Lasang is a big bad.
He is a big bad. He's one. It's I do love that it's very sort of Game of Thrones revolving big bad. Who is
Yes,
the true and like we said, Janae was super clever, but that doesn't she hasn't survived. So being clever is not enough to keep you going. There has to be something else, and there's an element of luck, and it's like the real life, dictators or whatever. There's dictators and they're overthrown, and then there's a different dictator and they're overthrown. And I like
yes,
that they were sort of echoing that. Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Um, yeah, it was an interesting ending for sure.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great episode in
yeah.
general.
I had spoken before about feeling that it was in previous episodes. We had two different shows that were competing against each other, and in here they literally sort of meet at the moment. Daryl and Carol are reunited. It's like they're that's the that's the previous half, and then this is the new half. But it feels like Daryl was trapped in the old half for a bit when he's being rude to Carol. He's still this version of Daryl, and it takes him a while to come back to the real Daryl we know.
Yeah.
Um, which is interesting. But I loved the way they used Didi and Theo as very obviously a parallel for Daryl and Carol, and a foreshadowing, a sort of this is what the life they could have is, and what they're fighting for really is to be able to have a life of peace where they, although interestingly, Carol had peace at the Commonwealth and she
Yeah.
didn't like it and she left. So it's maybe only
Well, she
peace.
wasn't totally she didn't have a lot of internal peace because
No, she didn't have
she
internal peace. That's
yeah.
exactly it. Yeah, she had external. There was nothing chasing her. So maybe it's about them dealing with the stuff that's giving them internal turmoil. Can't even speak. Internal turmoil. Try saying that 3 times. And once that's resolved, they can have peace. And enjoy a life, enjoy life's little moments more. Um,
You know,
I thought
I
that. Sorry, Karen.
oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, in the scene where they're eating the truffle eggs, there was a bit of dialogue, and I thought, why are they having this dialogue? And I thought, is this another sort of multi-layered where they're talking about truffles and how hard they are to find? And they said, it takes patience and a keen eye and patience. And Didi says, "Oh yeah, it's only for special occasions." And I was like, is that mean to me? I'm like, and I
Yeah.
was wondering if basically they were talking about what Didi talks about the rareness of love. Like rare love is so rare, you have to be patient and wait for it and keep an eye out and don't lose it when you find it, kind of thing. I may be reading too much into that, but it was just a weird couple of sentences that I thought,
Yeah. I'm just I'm still amazed that they thought it was a special enough occasion to make truffle eggs for Carol and Daryl.
maybe it'd been a while since they had visitors.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. That's a good point. Um, but, it's what were we just talking about before that? Because
Oh, sorry.
I had a
You had a thought and it's gone.
oh yeah. No, I remember. Okay. So I know I had talked about to you and a couple of our friends in our group chat about this before, but you know, as much as I absolutely hate that Carol and Daryl's dynamic it's almost reminiscent of season 11, which was
Yeah,
terrible. Um, but the more I thought about it, I feel like is as much as it sucks, I almost felt like it was necessary in a way
yeah,
because Carol basically flew there to find Daryl because she doesn't have peace without him.
yes, yeah,
And all of this stuff came up while he was gone, and she he can't be the one to heal that in her. She needs to
no,
heal that herself.
yes,
And it's if they were all like, if they were all like lovey-dovey and everything was perfect and then I think she would be
yeah,
relying on him to do that.
yeah. That's a great point. Yes, because it's always the same. When people talk about ships and stuff about they save each other. That was one of the taglines. Um, but you shouldn't be relying on somebody else to save you. You have to save yourself.
Yeah.
And they have to settle the things that are inside of them. They asked for questions for the panels this week at the New York Comic Con, and one of the questions I submitted was, what internally is standing in the way of Daryl's happy ending? And it's the same for Carol. That it's not each other. It's not that people keep dying and whatever. It's something inside themselves that is stopping them. And it's exactly what we said in that moment where they're bickering at the car. They both want the other to open up to them.
Yeah.
And that will be a way to heal things within themselves. Like, tell me your problems and that will help you. But still trying to solve them on their own instead of going, look, be open with each other, tell each other exactly what you're thinking, what you're going through, what you're feeling, and then you yourself will start to process it. And they're not processing their trauma. That's very psychological. I should be a therapist.
But yeah, I mean, it's I because obviously Carol is there with Daryl. Like
Yeah,
she's not going to just be like, "We're not friends anymore. I'm going to go home."
yes,
Obviously
yes,
it's not like that. She loves him, whether you want to argue that it's platonic love or
yes,
romantic love.
exactly.
She loves him. Um, and he's the most important person in the world to her.
Yes,
So he could be like, calling her every name in the book, and she's still not going to leave him.
no, no,
And
exactly.
he's but so I think like she needed to find him in a way. I think she needed to find him and then get kind of a reality check. Like,
Yeah, just seeing
oh,
him isn't going to fix everything. No,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's so yeah, I kind of and that's not me trying to like make myself feel better about, him being a
yes,
dumbass, but I
yeah,
really think that's the case, that she just
yeah.
had to deal with this on her own.
I still think there should have been a scene of Daryl just expressing not necessarily his gratitude, but his wonder. How you did this? How?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And I would also have liked to have seen them both acknowledge that and Carol slightly does it, but this is a miracle. The fact that we found each other again, something in this universe wants us to stick together, and
Yeah.
we should listen to that and stop
Yes.
trying to leave each other. It's not working. I would have liked to have seen that more verbalized, but that's how I always feel with The Walking Dead, is that I want more stuff clearly verbalized, and they're doing better at that in this, because
Yeah.
obviously Carol is really starting to deal with her stuff. But I would like to see more of it from Daryl's side of things, that he will say, the fact you came here, and as you say, you would say this if it was platonic as well. You would just be astounded and blown away A, that she managed it, and B, that she was willing to do that, to risk that, only on the idea that he might not be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. I agree.
there's hopefully that they'll talk about a lot more of this stuff, come season.
I have a feeling they will.
Yeah.
So who's getting your angel wings and suspenders this week?
Well, Angel Wings has to go for Didi. She's just the absolute the business. Giving Caryl a hug. Carol's needed that hug. The last time was
Yeah.
Jerry. Jerry gave her the hug, and then was it Magna gave her a hug that she needed as well in season 11? That was a good one. But yeah, I just think Didi is a sweetheart who saw a possibility, even though she thought Carol was Isabelle. I think she just saw two people with a chance of grabbing onto something beautiful, and she wanted that for them, even though they were strangers to her. So that's lovely. And
Yeah.
I'm afraid the suspenders are going to have to go to Theo and his walking boots, because you just don't do that, man. You just
Yes.
and you got his comeuppance because his beloved died, but still, dude,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't side with the Nazis. Never side with the Nazis. It's a simple rule in life.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I want to give Caryl the angel wings, but it's hard to give either Caryl or Daryl
Yeah.
either the angel wings or the suspenders because they're the main focus.
Yes.
But so I'll go ahead and give them to both Caryl and to Didi. And I'll give the the suspenders are going to Theo.
Sorry, Theo.
Yeah. We loved you at first.
Yeah.
when Daryl was
really
pushing you around in the wheelchair and you were talking about, sex on the tongue and
Yeah.
but then you had to go all like, yeah.
Ruin it.
Yeah.
I mean, we do know that whenever Daryl and Carol turn up someplace nice, people are going to die within the day.
Yeah.
So there was an inevitability with Ginny turning up, but he could have, done it. It could have happened without him betraying these nice people.
Yeah, pretty much.
This nun.
Well,
You thought she was a nun, and he betrayed a nun.
yeah. I mean, at least it wasn't as fast as with Nat and Rick.
Oh no!
Like, the second he lays eyes on him.
Dead.
Like, man, that Rick Grimes death curse is strong. Someone posted in one of the From groups a picture of Rick and Daryl, and they're like, what would happen if they showed up in town? And like, everybody would immediately die.
Solves everything. Everybody's dead. The worst one for me is the Abbey. That Daryl was there a day, and every single person in the Abbey died, except for the two people that escaped. Like, wow.
Yeah, exactly. Funny enough, it's somebody else posted like a picture of Negan, and they're like, what would happen if he showed up? I'm like, he would die immediately because Victor would take him into the monster tunnels where the monsters sleep, and he would not shut the fuck up.
Yes.
And he would get got by the monsters real fast.
Oh dear.
But great episode. Definitely, I think it's our favorite. Both of our favorites.
Yes.
Both of our favorites. Yeah. It's interesting how episode 4 seems to always be a good one for series for some reason.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, of course, it was in the Ones Who Live. It was a fantastic one.
Yeah, for sure. We just a reminder, you can. I'm just gonna flash them really fast. If you're watching us on YouTube, there's our little logo in the corner there, the Daryl Dixon podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast app. And of course, if you're listening to us, you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@cyborgqueenmedia. And as a reminder, we some of the other podcasts that we currently have going on right now are the Teacup TV podcast, Death Crunch, our Hysteria podcast, and of course from Series Podcast. And that one we have an after show for right now on Sunday nights as well. And if you come to our after show, you can enter to win a cameo giveaway from Dave Alpay. And I've got another giveaway actually involving kind of related to David Alpay and his character Jade that I'm really excited. It's not as big, but I'm really excited about it. So I'll be announcing that shortly too, and I'm super pumped. But Dawn, did you have any other thoughts to
Nope, I'm
add?
all good. Yep.
All
Find
right.
paradise for you. Well, let's hopefully we find paradise soon.
Yes. And as a reminder, I think I explained this before, but with this show, because this airs at the same time as From, and with From, it's a little bit more competitive. So if I don't get the From recap up like right as soon as the episode drops that night, it's never going to get seen. So I kind of have to wait and put up the this recap kind of later in the day on Sunday, and then the podcast recap on Monday.
Yeah.
And so there's always going to be a little bit of a delay, unfortunately, but that's what we're stuck with. So, but thanks everyone for joining us. We only have a couple more weeks left. Thanks for hanging in there, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.